Hi guys, I'm Danae Mack. This is the Connections and Concept Project using Inquiry in Language Arts and Social Studies, EDU 387L methods, language arts, and social studies. A question I have for you is, what do you think of when you hear the word symbolism? When I hear the word symbolism, I think of something that represents or stands for something. So what is symbolism? Symbolism is the practice or art of using an object or a word to represent an abstract idea. It can be an action, person, place, word, or an object. They all can have a symbolic meaning. Some examples are black symbolizes evil, roses symbolize romance or love, and dogs symbolize loyalty and honesty. So this takes us into the integrating language arts and social studies strategy number 20. Strategy number 20 talks about symbolism through the social studies. The text talks about how students realize the symbolism in the big ideas, such as monuments and statues, but not in the abstract way symbolism is in novels or poems, for example. It explains how symbolism is very important within students, and students understand what symbolism is, just not in a deeper or critical thinking situation. So the themes that I chose to go along with strategy number 20 are strand 1, which is culture, strand 2, which is time, continuity, and change, strand 4, which is individual development and identity, strand 5, which is individuals, groups, and institutions, and then strand 10, which is civic ideals and practices. So connecting to literature, symbolism is a literary device. Symbolism can be portrayed as a metaphor, simile, allegory, archetype, and myth. Writers love to use symbolism because it allows a writer to convey something to their audience in a poetic way instead of saying it outright. This helps readers visualize complex concepts and central themes. The symbolism can also be in film, speeches, novels, and poetry. And symbolism is very important, but it's not so subtle. The author of the novel does not want to tell you what the symbolism is. They want you to read it, dig for it, and search for it. So some examples of symbolism in literature is The Great Gatsby and The Green Light. So for example, Jay Gatsby, the green light shining from Daisy's dock, embodies his quest for Daisy and the American dream that he has spent most of his life chasing. While the light itself symbolizes the love for Daisy, the green color is symbolic of the money and greed that led Daisy to the life she is now stuck in. The Lord of the Flies, which is the conch. The shell quickly becomes a symbol of power when a group of boys are stranded together on an island. It starts as a tool for upholding democracy and free speech. To maintain order, each boy will be given a chance to hold the conch and express his thoughts uninterrupted. However, the conch only works as long as the boys believe in the values it symbolizes. And then The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, the blackbird or the raven, symbolizes death and loss. So connecting to the social studies, culture is based on symbolism. Everything one does throughout their life is based and organized through cultural symbolism. So symbols mean different things to different people, which is why it is so impossible to explain how a specific culture will symbolize something. So this can be gender, place, ethic, religion, and language. So some symbols are gained from experience, while others are gained from culture. So some examples of symbolism in social studies is our culture in the United States. So the bald eagle symbolizes bravery and courage, while the USA flag symbolizes the 13 original colonies and the 50 states. Monuments are also very symbolic. So the Statue of Liberty's torch is a symbolism of enlightenment, and then Lincoln's Memorial symbolizes in belief in the freedom and dignity of all people. And then religion is also very symbolic. So for example, you have Christianity. So doves symbolize the Holy Ghost, and then the cross is the main symbol of Christianity. So then this brings us into the buffalo and why the buffalo is so sacred and symbolic to Native Americans around the United States and more importantly in Montana. So in 2016, the buffalo was officially named the national mammal of the United States for its representation of unity, resilience, and importance to Native Americans. To this day, the buffalo remains an important animal to tribes across the United States and Montana. The symbolism may vary slightly from tribe to tribe, but tribal people still hold an important spiritual connection to the buffalo. Historically, the buffalo has always been a part of the indigenous culture practices and religious ceremonies. This animal has long provided food, shelter, and weapons for the survival of tribal families. So, to bring in IEFA and Montana Native American tribes, I chose the Blackfeet tribe, which is located on the Blackfeet Reservation around Glacier National Park. They were called the people of the buffalo because they were well-known buffalo hunters. Buffalo were very sacred and symbolic to the Blackfeet. The Blackfeet were named after the buffalo because of the soles of their moccasins were black, just like the black hooves of the buffalo. The buffalo were nomadic hunter-gatherers, which means they hunted for buffalo and gathered vegetable foods. And then in the 19th century, there were more buffalo per square feet than people on the Blackfeet tribe and reservation. And to the Blackfeet, the buffalo symbolizes abundance and manifestation. So it goes without saying that buffalo meat is the most important part of a Native American's diet. Historically, they ate the meat raw, roasted, and boiled it. They preferred the hump or the shoulder meat, the tenderloin, and the tongue. To use up the extra meat, they would cut it into strips and then dry it and smoke it. And then they would prepare this meat and pound it with mixed it and fat in it. This food was a staple and it lasted in storage for a very long time, and it was very convenient to carry. The Blackfeet used the hides for many things. They used it for coats, teepees, shoes. They used it for rugs, bedding. They also used the horns to make cups and bowls. So every single part of the buffalo was used and nothing was wasted. So I found this chart on what every single part of the buffalo was used by the Native Americans and the Blackfeet. So they used bones, bladder, stomach, hair, the skull, the horns, the muscles. They used every single part of this buffalo and never wasted anything because it was so sacred to them. So this brings us into buffalo jumps and hunting. The buffalo roamed in very large herds, as so did the Blackfeet tribe. These large animals were so unpredictable that they had no set migration path, and hunters had to search for them rather than wait for them. The Blackfeet would hunt bison in large groups. They were fierce and brave for hunting buffalo because it was a very dangerous job and required skills to kill such these big animals, and they only let certain people do it because of the buffalo. It was so sacred. Several techniques were used in the hunt for the buffalo, all with aiming and driving the buffalo either into corrals, pounds, or over cliffs. So the Blackfeet used the buffalo jump as their technique, and this technique is done when a small group of hunters who would approach the herd as closely as possible, then using a hill, gully, or cliff. They would charge the animals and kill as many as possible before they scattered. The Blackfeet specialized in buffalo runners. These were young men trained in animal behavior to guide the buffalo into the driven lanes. So they would dress up as young buffalo and run ahead of the herd so that when the buffalo would jump off the cliff, it would kill them. They would fall into the weight of the herd pressing behind them, breaking their legs. The picture shown is called the head smashed in. Buffalo jump is where the Blackfeet tribe actually used this buffalo jump to kill their buffalo. It is located in Canada, and it's 1,000 feet long and 39 feet deep. So dances and spirits are very important to the Native Americans with the buffalo. The buffalo dance revolves around the buffalo. The buffalo dance is a celebration of Thanksgiving, and the hunter takes on the spirit of the buffalo as he is hunted during the year. He thanks the spirit of that animal, and he asks for good luck for the next year hunting. So here's a video of the buffalo dance.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
And then the Sundance, the main symbol of the Sundance was the buffalo, so they would dress up and wear the buffalo headdresses. And it usually involves the community gathering together to pray and heal. And individuals would make personal sacrifices on behalf of the buffalo, making their sacrifices for them. So, buffalo is very symbolic to Native Americans and Blackfeet as well. The three most important symbols of the buffalo were strength, power, and safety. They chose these three meaningful symbols because strength, power, and safety was what the buffalo gave to them when they needed it the most. So if I were teaching this lesson in my future classroom, the social studies standards I would use are identify key symbols of nations, understand tribes in Montana have their own unique histories, and explain how Montana has changed over time and how this history has impacted the present. And then the English standards I would use are describe people, places, and things, and events with relevant details. Summarize a written text, read aloud, or informational presented in device media or formats. And then cite specific textual evidence to support primary and secondary sources. So some strategies that I would implement into my future classroom for the younger elementary is a little activity called Symbolic Pictionary. So as the picture on the right, you would give students a word. So in the picture, they use the word school. Students would then draw a symbol that they think school means to them. So every single student's going to have a different drawing, and that's what they mean. That's what the symbol means to them. So you would say, okay, the word is school, and then they would draw what school means to them. So this implements symbolism in a smaller way than in a bigger way. And then the Metaphoric Pictionary uses metaphors. So as the example on the left, the student says, I'm like a giraffe because I'm tall. So he symbolizes with a giraffe because giraffes are tall and he's tall. So some strategies I would use for the older elementary are the Let It Go strategy, which is the famous song in Frozen. You would have the students watch the music video of Frozen, and they would pick out the possible symbols, so the snowflakes or the gloves in the music video, and then what are the characteristics of the symbols, so how are they unique, and it can symbolize the queen, and it protects the hands and the cold. And then the what it might represent, so the snowflakes represent being unique, and the glove represents protection and then being free. And then for middle school, I would take my students on field trips. I would take them to the Museum of the Rockies, which is the museum located in Bozeman. It's just a connection of what they're reading and studying in class to learning it, seeing it, and feeling it in a museum environment where they can actually see and put the two together of the symbolism. And then, so the connections. With inquiry, students can be engaged in their own learning to create their own learning path and pace. They get to learn information that is interesting and relevant to them as individuals, and then students can drive their own bus to success. And the inquiry that is being used in the classroom. And social studies and English connect and support each other because it enriches both subjects by integrating the two in a classroom. And then to conclude, this project was a true inquiry for me. I got to choose what I wanted to learn about and something that was interesting to me. I also extended my content knowledge in Buffalo, Blackfeet, and Native Americans in general. I also found strategies I can implement in my future classroom on integrating English arts and social studies.